NASA's Mars rover Perseverance, the most advanced astrobiology lab ever sent to another world, continues to send striking images to Earth. The rover streaked through the Martian atmosphere and landed safely inside a vast crater on Thursday, the first stop on a search for traces of ancient microbial life on the red planet. Well, the landing represented the riskiest part of a two-year, $2.7 billion endeavor, whose primary aim is to search for possible fossilized signs of microbes that may have flourished on Mars some 3 billion years ago, when the fourth planet from the sun was warmer, wetter and potentially hospitable to life. Scientists hope to find biosignatures embedded in samples of ancient sediments that Perseverance is designed to extract from Martian rock for future analysis back on Earth, the first such specimens ever collected by humankind from another planet. Two subsequent Mars submissions are planned to retrieve the samples and return them to NASA in the next decade in collaboration with the European Space Agency. Perseverance is the 9th U.S. spacecraft to successfully land on Mars since the Viking missions in 1976. Two international Mars missions, the Hope orbiter from the United Arab Emirates and the Tianwen-1 orbiter lander and rover from China, arrived at the Red Planet earlier this month. SABC engineer and space exploration enthusiast Khutso Matlala joins us now via Zoom as we wrap Thursday's victorious landing on the rover and its agenda going forward. Khutso, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to The Globe.
Thank you, Zimbiu, and welcome to the viewers as well.
Let's talk about the mission to Mars in greater detail. Just how difficult was it traveling from Earth to Mars?
Well, this mission actually took off on the 30th of July, 2020. And as we all know, that was the middle of the coronavirus. So this made the preparations very difficult for the engineers and the teams involved in making this mission take off. But however, they did get used to the ways of working around this coronavirus and made it possible to launch on the planned date, which was the 30th of July. And this date was actually halfway through the launch window for Mars. As you know, launching probes to Mars, you only have a 26-month window to launch because of the distance that Mars will be in relation to the sun, and that will, to the Earth, and that will shorten your travel time to Mars. So they were halfway through the window, and on the 30th, they were able to launch, which is 7 months ago. But the launch went well as planned, and they didn't experience any difficulties after launch till they reached the next milestone.
Let's talk about the landing in layman's terms. How was it?
Yeah, the landing was very interesting. But just to add that this Perseverance rover was actually traveling through space at 76,500 kilometers per hour. Now, to put that into perspective, that is probably traveling from Johannesburg to Cape Town in just under a minute, 55 seconds
Sure.
Exactly. So if you can imagine that speed, it's really amazing speed.
Sure.
And then to do that speed for 7 months till just before the 7 minutes of terror, which is what they call it. So after this, it's probably 500 million kilometers that it will travel. It will now reach the Mars atmosphere, which is 1% the thickness of the Earth's atmosphere. It means slowing down the probe is much more difficult, and you have less time to slow it down than you have on Earth. But from 76,000 kilometers, it had to slow down to about 20,000 kilometers per hour. That's when it reached the atmosphere, and that's where the friction will now help you to slow the rover down. So as it enters the Martian atmosphere, it will then deploy its parachute, which will help it to slow even more. And then as it gets closer to the surface, they then used something which is different, which has never been used, which is called the it's a sky crane, and this sky crane actually has rockets. It can fire rockets on it to slow it down. But just before touchdown, to achieve a cat landing, they then drop the rover on it's tethered. It's dropped on strings that lower it towards the surface of Mars, and as it touches down, it cuts those umbilical cords and cables and flies away and lands at a much safer spot away from the rover itself. This was really amazing. And they used two technologies which they have never used before. One was just to deploy the parachute at the right time. And the second one was to use the sky crane to actually fly over and use pictures which are loaded on the rover itself to compare those pictures to what it is seeing. That allows them to zoom in and land exactly where they wanted to land. And all of that happened in that 7 minutes, and it was all automatic, because at that time, 7 minutes before touchdown, you have no contact with the rover, and all of that went very smoothly.
What's the main intent of this mission? I mean, are we getting any information or perhaps communication from the space exploration experts as to whether there is life on Mars?
Well, that is the primary mission. Some other probes have been sent. Mars is being orbited by orbiters. Like you said, there's been 9 other missions before that by NASA. We have flyby missions. We also have lander missions where they just land and do their experiments. And now we have the rover ones where they actually move around. So the signs are there that there was once some sort of life on Mars, but what Perseverance is there to do is to prove or to find out if this life existed, what ended it, and that will also help to know where our planet is going once you can find out that another planet hosted life before and now there is no life. And where they landed is called the Jezero crater, where it's actually an old lake that had water, and you can see there's 2 rivers that used to flow into that lake. So they will be drilling they'll be drilling into different rock samples there to find out what lays beyond or beneath that crust of the Martian surface. And this will help to find out what type of life existed there and what ended that life that was once on the Martian surface.
And Khutso, do we know how long this mission will take before the next such is embarked on?
Well, we know that there is another rover that landed there in 2012 called Curiosity. They expected about 2 years out of that rover. But till today, it's still sending pictures and it's still communicating with Earth. This one also has about a 2-year plan, but based on the evidence that the previous one is still alive 8-9 years later, this will be a long mission. But part of this mission is what you mentioned before, the Martian Sample Return Project, where Perseverance will be drilling samples and leaving them at certain locations. And in 2026, they are planning a mission to launch another probe. This one will be a lander. It could be a lander and a rover, where it will land on Mars, collect the samples, take off from Mars, and orbit Mars till the time is right for it to return to Earth. And that will be the European Space Agency in collaboration with NASA. On that mission, and the expected time to land back on Earth with those samples for scientists to continue and do in-depth analysis of them is 2031. So 10 years from now, the samples that are being collected on Mars will be on Earth for our scientists to have a closer look at them. So I would say, yeah, looking at the combined time, it's probably a decade of what started on Thursday.
And how different then is this mission compared to the Curiosity mission, which landed back in 2012?
I'd say the difference is the technology that's being used, and the two that I've mentioned, that they use two different technologies to pinpoint. So what has been a big improvement in the past is how they are able to zoom in and land exactly where they land. Where in previous missions, they would land probably 30 kilometers away from where they want to land, and that rover would have to travel. Now, traveling will waste the energy and the lifetime of the rover, but this time they landed much closer to that, and therefore the energy can be focused in doing in the prime mission. And the other difference is the sky crane. I mean, that is a really wonderful invention that they used there, and that reduced the dust that the rover would have picked up had it if it had to touch down on its own without a sky crane. And what they've added as well is I'll call it a drone. Perseverance carries a drone with it, and for the first time we'll have a drone flying on Mars, offering pictures and looking beyond where the rover would be able to travel. These rovers travel very slowly. I mean, Curiosity in 8 years has traveled 30 kilometers only. But if you have a drone, you can cover much more distance and know exactly where to go should you need to move further than where you are. So yeah, that's the major difference there. And another thing that they added on the Perseverance is it's something that they call the MOXIE. MOXIE is turning basically living off the planet, making oxygen from the carbon dioxide rich Mars atmosphere. Which will be a good experiment that will actually allow humans in future to live off the planet and make their own oxygen on the planet using such experiments that are on board the Perseverance rover.
Yeah. And NASA is on its own here, so to speak. But is there any such mission where the agency will collaborate with other nations?
Oh yeah. So part of that collaboration is returning the samples. They will be working together. And maybe we shouldn't really say alone that much, because as it lands, there is a time where it cannot have direct contact with Earth, with planet Earth. And it uses the two orbiters which are currently orbiting Mars and have been orbiting for a number of years to relay those signals back to Earth. So so you would say there is some sort of partnership, because without those orbiters, some of the information wouldn't come back to Earth. And while it's on Mars, you have about 8 minutes per orbiter per day to actually send information back, and very little limited time where the rover itself can have direct contact with Earth. But when that contact is not there because of the movement of these planets, the orbiters are actually relaying all those signals and the wonderful pictures that we saw just minutes after touchdown. So yeah, there is a collaboration in a way till the samples are returned.
All right, Khutso, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your update.